How's it going, guys? Omak here for the first time in a solid 19 months, just over a year and a half, but I am back and hopefully better than ever. In today's video, we're going to be talking about what would have happened if Goku was born with God Ki. But if this is the first video of mine you have seen, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as both help out greatly. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. So, before we start on the main story, let me explain what I mean by Goku having God Ki. And before you ask, no, he isn't just born with Super Saiyan God, as that would just make him OP from the get-go. For now, his God powers will have flares in a sense. What I mean by that is that he'll tap into his abilities at unexpected moments, but it still won't be Super Saiyan God, just more of a God essence, if you know what I mean. Our story begins on planet Vegeta. A child has just been born, and that of course is the second son of Bardock and Guinea, Kakarot. But what the young Saiyan couple didn't know is that their son had in fact been blessed with immense power and otherworldly abilities from one of the top gods in the universe. No, in the multiverse. How did this happen? Well, let me explain. A few days previous, far away in a whole other universe, the Omni King is looking upon the future of certain species within all of his universes, and when he comes across planet Vegeta in Universe 7, he sees that most of them eventually get killed off by some emperor named Frieza, except for three. Some prince called Vegeta, destined to be born with great power, a quiet yet mighty child by the name of Broly, but then the third. His destiny, however, is to be born noticeably weak in comparison to the other Saiyan babies. So, interested on how their lives are going to play out, he dives 40 years into the future and sees the Prince Kid and the Runt fighting off some weird gold alien, as we know as Golden Frieza. Wait a minute, those transformations they're in, that energy, it's so familiar. Is that not God Ki? This gets the God thinking. This Kakarot guy has seemed to have reached God levels of power, while being a weakling at birth. He thinks to himself, what would have happened if he was born powerful? He ventures back into the past, and with a flick of his finger, he shoots a minuscule fraction of his power into the unborn child within his mother Guinea. But what the childlike Zeno didn't realise is that he had accidentally put more ki than he had intended into the boy, as his intent was to only put his power up to the levels of that Vegeta kid. Oh well, who knows? This Kakarot kid might grow up to be a friend for himself or whatever. Zeno stops thinking about the Saiyans and carries on spectating other planets in other universes, promising to himself that he won't create any more future gods. Anyways, Kakarot is born and the young couple are crying tears of joy. Bardock grabs the scouter, attempts to read his son's power level, but something strangely unexpected happens. His scouter, it reads 0. Is his son dead or something? Like, surely he should have a power level of at least 5 or something. Strange, Bardock thought to himself. It's most likely just some kind of glitch. But as soon as that thought left his mind, his scouter slowly but surely began to almost levitate off of his face, before sent flying into the wall. But then, he looks over towards his son, and not only have the colour of his eyes turned into a shade of red, but he is also surrounded by this strange, glowing, vibrant flame-like aura, almost consuming both himself and his mother, with his eyes darted towards the shattered scouter on the floor, until suddenly, he falls unconscious. That flamey aura is gone, and his eyes are back to black. But as soon as Kakarot is heard to be snoring in his mother's arms, Bardock knows what he must do. If King Vegeta, or hell even Frieza, were able to get a hold of his son, God knows what his son would be turned into. The main difference in this timeline compared to the original is that Kakarot was around 2 years old when he was sent to Earth originally, but in this timeline, scared that Frieza or Vegeta might take his son and turn him into a monster, Bardock wants to send him away as soon as possible. So in this case, the very day Kakarot was born, around 2 years before the extinction of the Saiyans, so Bardock hasn't had the thought of that just yet. Bardock explains his plan to Guinea, and she breaks down, falling to her knees, still holding her newborn baby, with tears rolling down her eyes. She sobs, and sobs some more, holding onto her baby as hard as possible, never wanting to let go, until eventually, Bardock gets on one knee, and puts his hand on his wife's shoulder, telling her that they have no other option. Guinea gives Bardock hell, shouting at him, asking why can't both of them, if not one of them, go with him. And Bardock tells her that their power levels would be picked up on the scouters of that bastard King Vegeta's men. But because Kakarot has no reasonable power level, they can send him, and only him, away. And after much thought, Gine nods her head, gets to her feet, wipes the tears from her eyes, and waits for Bardock to return with a stolen pod. But while Bardock is away, Gine tries her best to cement a message within the newborn's mind. She tells Kakarot that he is a very gifted boy, and with great power comes great responsibility. She further tells him that he must use his abilities to protect the world's inhabitants from any threats, and if the day ever comes that Frieza tracks him down for his power, he must not only fight for his new people, or the Saiyans, but every single race in the universe that has been affected by that tyrant. Not at all expecting him to reply, Gine asks him if he understands, and as she expected, he just looked at her with a confused look on his face. He is only a few hours old, what can she possibly expect? About an hour later, Bardock gets home with a pod above his head, and from a distance of their house, he shouts at Gine to get running. They don't have a lot of time before King Vegeta's men get to them, as he was spotted stealing the pod. Bardock tells Gine to get inside the pod. They don't have time for running, they have to fly as fast as they can. Gine gets inside the pod with her baby in her arms, and Bardock, with the pod in his arms, zooms off towards the nearby wastelands. Upon arrival, Bardock repeatedly asks Gine to get out of the pod, getting angrier with each failing attempt. But with every attempt, she refuses. One of them have to go with their son. He's not even a day old, for God's sakes. Bardock, as stubborn as he is, eventually gives in, realizing that she isn't just going to give up anytime soon, and says to her that if she wants to go with him, she has to be knocked unconscious. But that is when Bardock gets another idea. What if he were to knock out Gine and himself? That way, if Vegeta's men were to track them down, they wouldn't be able to pick up any power readings on the Scouters at all. And plus, even if Bardock was to stay on planet Vegeta, he'd most likely be thrown in prison or worse, executed for stealing a pod. So, Gine gets out of the ship, Bardock gets in, Gine gets back in, sitting on her husband's lap with their child in her arms. Bardock knocks out Gine, puts in Earth's coordinates, they blast off, and then as soon as they're in the sky, Bardock punches himself in the face, knocking him out clean. The King's elites arrive minutes after the family's takeoff, expecting to find Bardock, but they find nothing, so they decide to report back to the castle, empty-handed. And just under a year later, the family arrive on planet Earth, at Mount Pausu. And that just about wraps it up for part 1. And if you would like to see a part 2, make sure to like, subscribe and share with friends, and I'll try to get it out as soon as possible. Like, it really does feel good to be back. I've honestly missed this, and I hope you are all happy to see me once again. Huge thanks to Jokutube for editing today's video. I've linked his channel down below, and make sure to check him out. Anyways, that's all from me for today. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now. Cheers.